This is the most you will ever make in a single day, Violet. Consider it charity." My father did not even look up from his turkey as he slid the check across the table. $5,000. Fix your brother's mess so the family can eat. Tomorrow is the global launch. If that AI collapses, we all starve. And since you are the only one who understands code, you are going to repair it." He gestured with the carving knife at me, his eyes icy. "Sign the NDA, take the money, and be thankful I am allowing you near a project this critical." I stared at the check. It was not payment. It was the number he assigned to my entire existence. Before I tell you how I used this very check to dismantle their entire empire, drop a comment. What is the cruelest gift or payment a relative has ever handed you? I truly want to know who belongs to our community. I looked at the check. I did not reach for it right away. I allowed it to remain on the tablecloth, soaking up a smear of turkey grease. My silence unsettled Henry, even though he masked it well. He lifted his wineglass, fingers shaking almost imperceptibly. That tiny tremor revealed everything. He was drowning in debt. He was siphoning company accounts because his personal funds were bone dry. He required this launch to work because without it, the facade of his fortune would crumble. To him, that $5,000 was a rope he believed he was kindly tossing to his incompetent daughter. But to me, staring at that paper rectangle, I understood. Its truth. It was hush money. It was my father assigning digits to my erasure. It was declaring that my pride, my skill, my sense of self were valued at exactly $5,000, not a cent beyond. That insight extinguished the last naive fragment of me that still longed for his affection. In its place formed something colder, a ledger. And I intended to audit him. One possessed knowledge he lacked. I knew why the platform kept failing. It was not an error. It was intentional. I had written the original kernel 3 years earlier, long past midnight in the basement while Harry squandered investor money at parties. I had engineered the entire framework Harry bragged was his brilliant creation. And before I walked away from this house forever, I had embedded a delayed digital rights management sequence deep within the code, a silent kill switch. It was crafted to freeze the system unless it received authentication from the original architect. That architect was me. Harry could not repair it because Harry never truly comprehended it. He was a marketer pretending to be an engineer. I picked up the check. I kept my expression neutral, the compliant daughter finally yielding. "I will fix it," I said quietly. Henry released a breath he had trapped in his chest. "Good. I knew you would be sensible." But I continued, pausing with the check between my fingers. "I cannot accept this off the books, Dad. I am in the process of buying a condo. I require documented income for my mortgage approval. If the IRS reviews my finances and finds $5,000 in unreported cash, I am not taking the fall for you." He scowled, the vein in his forehead throbbing visibly. "So what? You expect me to add you to payroll?" I refuse to cover payroll taxes and insurance for one evening's work. "No," I replied, setting the snare. "Just categorize it as consulting fees. That way, I remain independent. I will manage my own taxes. Asterisk, you can simply categorize it as a deductible company expense. No documentation required from you." I observed avarice wrestle with pride inside his stare. Avarice prevailed. It always prevailed with Henry. He despised taxation far more than he despised me. "Fine," he muttered bitterly. He yanked the check back toward himself, scrawled consulting fee across the memo line, then thrust it back into my hand. He had absolutely no understanding of what he had triggered by labeling me contractor instead of staff. He had just formally acknowledged that I preserved intellectual property claims to any creation I delivered unless a distinct assignment agreement was drafted, and he was far too indifferent to compose one. He shoved the non-disclosure agreement across the table. "Sign this immediately. If you utter anything about the flaw, I will bury you in lawsuits. I examined the paperwork, which is a generic form he likely downloaded from some legal website. Contained a clause declaring the contract void if the signer misrepresented ownership of assets. It was designed as his shield, yet it would become his downfall. I wrote my name. The snare tightened quietly. He believed he had purchased my quiet compliance. He had instead handed me the cord to suspend him. The launch hall rose like a sanctuary of glass and steel, radiating wealth and innovation. But I never saw the grand platform. Henry seized my arm once we passed security, guiding me away from investors and flashing cameras. He escorted me down a narrow service hallway scented with wax and stale coffee. He halted before a door labeled janitorial supply. He forced it open. It was no green room. It resembled an overgrown closet containing a folding table, one chair, and a sputtering fluorescent bulb humming like a trapped insect. "Remain here," Henry whispered sharply, filling the doorway. "Do not step out until the system is repaired. You are the technician. Violet Harry is the public image. No one wants to view the grease monkey while purchasing a Ferrari." He slammed the door, sealing me inside dust and stillness. I lowered myself into the chair, opened my laptop, and linked to the local server. I was not present to seal a crack. I was present to bury an explosive charge. 10 minutes passed before the door swung wide. Harry inhaled deeply, carrying the aroma of luxury cologne and anxious perspiration. He ignored me entirely. He approached, a fractured mirror on the wall, adjusting his tie and inspecting his teeth. He was minutes from presenting technology he could not clarify to a child. Yet his priority remained his hairstyle. "Could you type more softly?" he snapped, scowling at my reflection. "I'm attempting to focus myself. The sound is disruptive." Ceased typing instantly. Studied my brother, the visionary chief executive. In that instant, clarity settled. It was beyond conceit. It was a cognitive void so vast it defied reason. Experts label it the Dunning-Kruger effect when an individual is so inept they cannot perceive their inadequacy. Harry sincerely believed the programming was trivial. In his perception, the vision, his talent for tailored suits and phrases like paradigm shift carried true worth. He assumed technology was mere sorcery, summoned by people like me for people like him. He never questioned the malfunction. He never asked how I planned to resolve it. He never feared another collapse because in his narrative, he was protagonist and fate would never humiliate him. He rested comfortably within that illusion. And that comfort guaranteed he would stride directly over the edge I constructed. "Nearly finished," I murmured evenly. "I only need to authorize the update." "Good," he replied distractedly, at last facing me. He glanced at the display, observing strings of code that resembled ancient glyphs. "Ensure it performs flawlessly." "I have. Investors from Tokyo arriving. If there is delay, you answer." He glanced at his watch, adjusted his jacket, and exited without gratitude. He left the doorway ajar, allowing the thunder of the assembling crowd to filter inward. They were shouting his name. He advanced toward brilliance, convinced he radiated like the sun. He failed to realize he was merely a moth. I returned my attention to the monitor. I was not deploying a correction. I was activating the hardware lock protocol. The snare was armed. I only needed to place the trigger within reach. I did not compose a solitary new command. You do not reconstruct a tower foundation moments before its grand unveiling ceremony. Instead, I reached into my bag and retrieved a small translucent crimson USB stick. It resembled a flimsy promotional trinket from a convention, yet it was a hardware authentication key I had secured 3 years earlier. It was the tangible key to the digital barrier I had concealed within the kernel. I inserted it into the server rack. A small crimson indicator on the device blinked once before, glowing steady. The laptop display shimmered. The warnings disappeared and the dashboard shifted into a calm operational green. It is fixed. I lied. Smoothly, my tone was controlled, but the framework remains fragile. This device functions as a physical relay. It skips over damaged sectors. Whatever happens, do not disconnect this drive before the presentation concludes. If you remove it, the entire network shuts down. Harry stared at the steady red glow as though it were some enchanted charm. He never questioned its mechanism. He never wondered why hardware was required for a software solution. He simply nodded, relief restoring the arrogance across his expression. He accepted my explanation because he needed to. He was sinking, and I had offered him a flotation device forged from iron. Good, Henry muttered, glancing at his watch again. You handled your task. Now leave. Use the rear service exit. I do not want investors laying eyes on you. They exited. Quickly, energized by the illusion of rescue, abandoning me with dust and the server hum. I counted slowly to 10, listening as their footsteps dissolved down the corridor. Then I rose, straightened my skirt, and lifted my bag. I was not exiting. Through the back door. I moved along the service hallway until reaching the secured entrance to the central lobby. It required a code from the opposite side designed to keep staff out of sight. I paused there. Moments later, a caterer hurried through, balancing a tray of empty champagne glasses. I caught the door before it sealed, offering a courteous smile. As I slipped into the main atrium, the shift was immediate. The air transformed from chemical cleaners to costly perfume and fresh lilies. The lobby shimmered with tailored suits, couture gowns, and the muted vibration of capital exchanging hands. I walked directly toward the VIP registration counter. The young attendant glanced up, her gaze assessing my simple blouse and absent credentials. She offered the polite, dismissive smile reserved for misplaced employees. The catering entrance is around the corner, miss, she informed gently. I am not catering, I replied, leaning closer. I abandoned the Invisible Daughter performance. My voice lowered slightly, carrying the authority I used in conference rooms, not family dinners. Check the registry. Violet Parker, managing partner at Tech Ventures. She hesitated, puzzled, but entered the name. Her eyes widened abruptly. She examined the screen, then me, cheeks flushing. Tech Ventures ranked among the primary investors in this field. My profile displayed priority clearance. I am terribly sorry, Miss Parker, she stammered, fumbling through a container of lanyards. We did not anticipate your arrival from that entrance. It is acceptable, I answered, accepting the substantial laminated badge she extended. It was black, trimmed in gold, unrestricted access. I placed it around my neck. Its weight felt protective, like armor. Yet I was no longer Henry's regret. I was not Harry's technician. I was the capital. It's cute. I passed the security guards, who acknowledged. My badge then pushed open the double doors leading into the auditorium. The lights were fading gradually. The production was beginning, and I possessed the best vantage point available. Harry stood at center stage, drenched in a white spotlight, costing more hourly than my entire compensation. He appeared convincing, tailored suit immaculate, posture assured, holding the microphone like royal authority. Behind him, the towering LED screen projected the polished, animated emblem of his artificial intelligence interface. He launched into his memorized address about visionary systems and reshaping tomorrow. He wielded terminology he barely grasped to market a creation he never engineered. I settled into the third row centered within the Platinum Investor section. The velvet seat was luxuriously soft. I crossed my legs, balancing my phone against my knee. I was not studying Harry. I watched the live stream display positioned near the stage. The viewer count climbed beyond 2 million. The entire world was watching. Henry stood in the stage wings, barely visible from my position. He was radiant with pride. He resembled a man who believed he had executed the flawless con. He was certain of his victory. He assumed I remained inside that supply closet, counting my $5,000 and staying unseen. He surveyed the first row, likely searching for the venture capitalist he aimed to dazzle. His gaze skimmed past me, then jerked backward sharply. It went. Motionless, I watched his lips part. I saw the blood drain from his face as recognition struck. He understood who occupied the VIP section. I gave him a restrained, icy smile. Then I lowered my attention to my phone. I had opened the administrative panel controlling the USB dongle. It was minimalistic and clean. A bright green indicator displayed active. Beneath it rested a large gray control labeled Revoke License. It was neither hacking nor illusion. It was conventional digital rights management protocol. I was the administrator. He was merely the end user, and his access window had closed. Harry reached the crescendo of his speech. And now, he proclaimed, motioning toward the display. Allow me to reveal the machine's mind. He pressed enter confidently. I touched revoke calmly. The display did not shatter. It faded into darkness. Then harsh white letters flooded the screen. Clear, severe. System failure detected. Fatal exception, hardware key withdrawn. Trial authorization terminated. Registered developer, Violet Parker. Unauthorized demonstration identified. Execution halted. The quiet was oppressive. 2 million streaming viewers saw my name appear. 300 investors watched their celebrated CEO stand frozen. Harry stared blankly, then pounded the keyboard repeatedly. Nothing. He muttered about a minor malfunction. Perspiration gathered beneath the hot lights while whispers swelled and phones lifted. The live stream comments filled rapidly with laughter and scam. Henry charged the stage, shoving Harry aside and striking the console desperately. The USB device was inert. He glanced upward, read my name displayed, then locked eyes with me. In that second, comprehension arrived. The money had not secured silence, it had secured accountability. 2:15 p.m. The SEC grievance I submitted was being reviewed. Henry barreled toward me, shouting about treachery, litigation, and contractual violation. He called for his attorney, insisting on immediate retaliation. He believed legality belonged to him. I remained composed and lifted the microphone steadily. I violated nothing. I stated evenly. That agreement is null. The projection shifted to an enlarged image of his check issued to me. The memo notation was circled boldly in crimson. Consulting fee? You designated me independent to evade taxation. That classification meant I preserved complete intellectual property ownership. You never possessed the code. I advanced to the NDA provision. Void if inaccurate statements regarding asset possession are submitted. You misled investors, you engaged in fraud, you invalidated your own agreement. Henry clutched his attorney, panic overtaking him. The lawyer examined the documentation once, then stepped away. You misrepresented facts to counsel, he said bluntly. I cannot defend securities fraud. He departed. There was no applause, only stunned stillness. Minutes later, federal officials entered. Efficient, unavoidable. I did not linger. As I passed Henry, something unfamiliar filled his expression. Fear. For the first time, he truly perceived me. Outside, sunlight struck like liberation. My phone vibrated urgently. Venture capital firms were calling. They had watched the broadcast unfold. They wanted the individual who genuinely engineered the platform. For years, I believed I was defective. I minimized myself so others could radiate. Yet shadows exist only where light is restrained. I did not ruin my family. I stopped shrinking. For their comfort. I walked forward with a future to construct one worth infinitely more than $5,000. They attempted to bury me. They forgot I was a seed.